Hey everyone, it is Valentine's Day, and your Bucks Island area fishing report is here, and we're checking in with our favorite Valentines. Well, the Bass's favorite Valentines. We're going to be talking to Tom, Lee, Gentry, and Tracy and find out how they're making fish fall in love with their lures. And we'll be right back with what Cupids have to say. We know you guys are going to spend your time with your favorite Valentine's green fish, green lips and well-rounded dorsals. That's what we're looking for. And we're going to talk to Gentry Gordy about what to find right here on Lake Martin. Elite Series is here. They're catching a bunch of fish, not a bunch of giant ones. They're talking 2-pounders, 3-pounders might be gold. What do you think is going to happen this week here?
We talked about it and we just about hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've watched some of it this last few days, and the guys throwing the square bills up shallow. I saw Steve Kennedy throwing that glide bait. Let me tell you, if he gets one good bite every day on that glide, and puts a decent limit with it, he's gonna be hard to beat. Your scopers they're gonna be in there. They're gonna find those 2-pound fish, 2 1/4. And they'll occasionally catch a big one, but it's what we talked about. You know what I mean? It's feast or famine, shallow water, square bill, chatterbait, stuff like that, flipping a jig. And then you got your guys that's going to be out shaking them in, and they're going to keep up with them.
Yeah, it looks like, early. We're obviously recording this on Thursday, so it's the first day of the tournament. 10 pounds is leading it halfway through the day. It seems to be a little stingy. Is that an effect of the cold and the different temperature changes? Is that's what it is?
Yeah, I think it got so cold, the last couple of weeks, but it's going to steadily be warming. So I think the weights are going to go up. Um, my fantasy fishing, my tiebreaker weight was 59.2. Because somebody, it's going to get better as the day goes. And Sunday, if they're getting that rain, let me tell you something about Martin. When it rains and you get some cloud cover, maybe a little wind, you're going to see a big bag Sunday.
All right, let's talk about Jordan a little bit. We got about a minute left in our report. What do we expect out of Jordan? I'm sure the current's going to be a little stronger there.
Yeah, it is, and those guys are going to play up the river. But it's until that water gets dirty. I talked to a buddy of mine about it the other day because I hadn't had a chance to get up there like I wanted to for some odd reason. And but it needs to be flowing. It needs to be muddy for that river bite for you to really get on those big fish. Now they're always going to be up there, but down the lake, still, like we talked about, the grass bite's going to get better. Um, your chatterbait, your square bill, some of those, the back of those shallower pockets, about halfway out, I think you'll see some really big fish come out of there. We'll be up there next weekend, so time will tell.
All right, brother. Well, as always, we appreciate all the information. Look forward to seeing you. Hey, we're here at the Elites, guys. Come see us this weekend. Look forward to seeing you. We know you're all gunning, looking forward to spending your time with your first love, and that's the fish. And we're going to talk to Lee Pitts about how to match make and how to bring old Cupid in between the lure and your fish. So, Lee, Weiss Lake, tell me what's going on. How do these fish fall in love with these lures?
Oh, I'll just be your little Cupid and I'll just buzz right in here on what's going on. So, the fishing is getting better. It's one of those things. I think the cold weather that we had come in is everything's kind of evening out a little bit. Water temperatures are coming back up, and you can see it with the fish too. Earlier in the week, we're graphing a lot of them, and I'm talking about the crappie end of it right now. We're graphing a lot of fish still out there deep, little sluggish, but some of the fish that are coming in that 5, 6, 7 foot range, they're starting to feed a little bit better. Still kind of suspending a little bit, getting around some of that brush is starting to bust around a little and roam around. So the long line trolling is picking up. Some of these bays midday when you've got some sunshine out there and the water's warming, minnows are starting to come back up off the bottom. So these fish are starting to chase a little bit. Talking with some of my buddies, we're still catching some with the vertical drop in that deeper structure off the river channel in the creek channels with the deeper brush. But what we're looking forward to, and that's with my clients and having multiple people on the boat, when you can stick those rods on there and start hitting these little creek channels and some of the breaks, and these fish are starting to suspend up and feed. Hey, that's the time we can really put some crappie in the boat.
Okay. What about the bass bite, Neely Henry, Weiss Lake? What's happening?
Neely is a little better right now with the bass bite. Um, they're starting to get on that square bill some. Chatterbait's been
Okay.
catching some fish, and still with your picking up a trap on some of these long tapered points and some of these hard spots. You can just kind of slow roll a trap through there and hop it a little bit and just let them come pick it up. But still, it's something slow. They don't want it burned. You can't go through there and just retrieve it and burn it. It's got to be that stop, give it something that they can just kind of look at a little bit and just come and pick it up.
One of my favorite things to do this time of the year is to throw a 3/4 ounce rattle trap on 20-pound monofilament because it buoys that bait up there and you can slow roll that thing over flats. It's a great bite, especially in that muddy water. Lee,
And they're eating
brother,
it
get
right
out
now
there.
too, so chunk it.
Oh, and I'm not there. Lee, my friend, have a great day. Put your clients on some fish. Hey, it is Valentine's Day here in the whole country, but here in the state of Alabama, we know who we're falling in love with, and Tom Ott. Boy, he is just the Cupid to bring them all together. Bass, lures, a little bit of grip and grin. That's the best thing for a Valentine's Day, isn't it, Tom?
Man, my heart is full of greenfish right now. You know it, Dano.
Well, let's do a little bit of recap real quick. Of course, we all know about the chartreuse grub that won Guntersville, but what was the overall pattern? Because not everybody has them little chartreuse grubs.
Right. I mean, I just couldn't believe that. It kind of carried me back to when I first started bass fishing. Throwing a grub around. But hats off to Cherry for figuring something out a little different. But the prevalent patterns really were a deeper running jerk bait, of course, the rattle trap, and a vibrating jig. And all of them either had some variation of orange or red is what the predominant was just red and not so much orange. I heard of that a lot. And with the jerk bait, it was just a little bit deeper jerk bait. And they really made it look easy, especially with the cold temperatures that they had to deal with. Everything was changing. It changed day from day to from the first day to the last day, and those guys adjusted seriously every day. It really kind of boggles the mind how they did that. But it's not that easy out there. I will say that. But there are a lot of fish to catch. It's just the funny thing about Guntersville is that those fish are from the dam to dam, and but they're not on every point. They're not on every hump. They're not on every ditch. But once you find those areas, you can really dial in a pattern. And that's the great thing about Guntersville. There's guys that were doing one particular thing the entire week, and their pattern kind of held up. It didn't catch the biggest fish, but it did hold up. And I mean, they were able to bring in the limits they needed. So I mean, it's just a matter of getting out there, really changing up that retrieve. A lot of those guys were talking about changing their retrieve. You heard Jordan talking about doing a yo-yo kind of drop, and then you heard other guys that was just steady retrieve. And it was constantly changing, and that's the thing about bass fishing, and that's why they make it look easy, and that's also why they get paid to do that. But they can figure those things out. But a weekend guy going out there, get you a rattle trap, get you a chatterbait, an A rig. I didn't see any of that, but an A rig definitely still catching a lot of numbers, and it's just a matter of being around that bait. Those guys dealt with a shad kill. I don't think we're going to see that this week, but you never can tell. I mean, it's just the bait was everywhere. It is starting to migrate into the larger creeks a lot more, kind of coming off of the river channel ledge. But it's definitely a hunt and pet kind of deal. But once you get on them, you're going to load the boat.
Brother, as always, we appreciate everything. We'll touch bases on a crappie bite next week because we just had to cover some bass fishing this week. Thanks what you
Absolutely,
do, buddy.
guys. We'll talk to you. Tight lines. We'll catch you next week.
Speaking of Valentine's, the Bass's favorite Valentine, Tracy Robinson, is joining us. Tracy, Let's talk a little bit of Logan Martin and Lay Lake and then making them fish fall in love with our baits. What's going on down there?
There, Dano. Logan Martin first. Um, Seems like the fish are a little confused. They can't decide whether it's going to be summer, winter, spring, spawn, hibernate, or whatever. But
No
and I
kidding.
say that because there's a lot of different things going on. Only pattern I've really been able to say that you can do consistently is when they're generating a little bit of water right now. Some of these the spots are kind of starting to get into some of the places where they're supposed to be on the front ends of some of these points, and you can sit there with an A rig or even throwing some of your rattle traps and crankbaits up there on those points and catching some of those fish. But there's some pretty good spots mixed in, anywhere from 10 inches long to 3 or 4 pound spots. But if you get in the right school of them, there's actually some fun to be had there on that A rig, especially for those fish. There's still a few largemouth and spots both around some of those chunk rocks that we talk about a lot at Logan. Those red clay banks, water's coming on up as far as temperature wise, so the fish are kind of still hanging around there. There's just not a ton of them there. They seem to be really scattered. We've had these big fluctuations in temperatures, and it's kind of got the fish scattered a little bit. But the flat-sided crankbaits on those rocks is still a thing. Some chatterbait around even some of the 4 and 5 foot structures still a thing too. So those fish are wanting to go shallow. They're going to kind of hang out where they're at right now until that water rises a little bit more depth wise, not so much temperature wise, but they're not going much shallower right now until that water rises. So that's kind of the key things there for bass. On the crappie, they seem to still be out there a little bit deeper. The people that are catching them out there on those creek channels in that 10 to 15 foot range. I still see a few fish up there, crappie around some of the brush. Not every piece of brush is just loaded with crappie, but every now and then I'll come across a piece, for whatever reason, it's got quite a few crappie hanging around on it. So that's kind of what I'm seeing at Logan right now for the bass and crappie. At Lay's still a little bit of mixed bag too of the shallower fish. I mentioned they're still getting a few of the big bites, punching some weights in some of those thicker grass mats, as crazy as that sounds. But anyway, the thicker mats got a couple of big fish in them. You're not going to catch many fish, but there's some really solid ones doing that. The A-rig and the minnows out there chasing the baits, both largemouth and spots, kind of mid to lower end of the lake, seems to be the more productive area right now. There's a few bait balls piling up too in some of these creeks that if you get around those, you're going to see a mixture of bass and crappie eating on those. The crappie that I still think are catchable are the ones in the standing timber still, vertical fishing for those, either minnows or jigs.
Well, brother, we appreciate everything as always, and we'll talk to you again next week, my friend. Have fun out there. Well, that wraps up our Bucks Island area fishing report for Saturday, February the 14th. Hey, if you are looking for the perfect gift for your Valentine and he happens to be a fisherman, come on down and see our favorite bass boats with Katie, Patrick, and Melissa. If it's the pontoon boat that you're looking for, we can put that ring on that finger too. Come on down and see us here at Bucks Island. And I know I sound like a salesperson, but you know what? We are here to put you in a boat and help you enjoy time on the water, whether it's fishing or with your family. Come see us at Bucks Island. You are our favorite family members, and we will talk to you again next week.